Hey guys, welcome back to Tales of Life. I did it! I remembered to do it this week. Let me just bury the lead here. You're gonna see me probably making all kind of motions and occasionally, and I've got a brace on again. Because yesterday I got to meet up with the Roman Legion that I volunteer with, the Living History group that I'm a part of. And we were doing an event at the Junior Classical League, which is this organization for, I'm pretty sure, high school kids. Um, well, high school kids, I don't know how young it goes, who are working on Latin and kind of keeping a lot of the classical Greco-Roman traditions alive still. And it's a fairly impressive bunch of they're self-selecting kids, but it's a fairly impressive bunch of kids. But as part of that, our Legion is there. We're doing weapons training and shield wall training and all sorts of those kinds of things. Although really a lot of it is we just let the older kids who've been coming for a few years teach the younger kids who've been there for a few years, who are new or have only been there a year, a lot of this stuff, because those older kids have been through those lessons. And as part of that, we got all dressed up, and I ended up with a chainmail shirt on top of my tunic. I didn't even get a subarmorless, which is the padding underneath. And while that looked really cool, and there are pictures of me in it, and pictures of me with my shield and a sword on the side, and everything like that. Chainmail weighs about 35 to 40 pounds, and it's one of those weird things where it's heavy, and you pick it up, and you're like, that's heavy. And then you put it on, and you wear it for 4 or 5 hours, 3 to 5 hours, somewhere in there. And I actually am lucky I don't have a bruise on my shoulder, but if I had been running and jumping, I would probably have, blackened bruises on my shoulders. But as it is, my shoulders are killing me. My left arm from carrying the shield around, because those shields, they're made out of plywood, which is what the Romans would have used. Those shields weigh a good 10 pounds, and then my other arm is bugging me, not as bad, but is bugging me because, mock fighting with a foam shield and foam sword. So, I've got kind of just the sore. It was a lot of fun, and I look like a complete dork, but also kind of cool with, chainmail on, and I had my black cloak on with a clasp that I had picked up recently, because it was cold at night. So that was a lot of fun, and those kids are some of the most impressive high school kids I've seen in a while. Everybody was super amped up to be there. All these kids were, super stoked, and it's the whole regional it's kind of like the regional convention for all these different schools that are part of this league. And then part of the evening's entertainment was that two groups did skits, and you're like, oh god, skits at a high school kind of event. Oh no, but everything they did. I mean, they're all retelling old mythology, mostly Greek mythology, but everything they did was retelling Greek mythology, and it was really interesting. The level of detail they put into it. They're all singing a bit, all this kind of stuff, and it was really impressive, entertaining. And one of the groups, it's like this weird, it's like the family is kind of like the core of the group. The parents are the teachers, and then there's but the kids are impressive. They're good singers. They're some of the better singers I've seen in a long time. And that was just really, and they were just excited. You got some weird duds in there, here and there, but it's the kind of event that I would have hated as a kid, because I didn't do team spirit, and I still have a hard time doing yay kind of spirit. I'm gonna sit up. But I also wish I had been in the kind of mindset as a kid to go to do these kinds of events, because that's a community for them, and they're all talking about being a familia, and all that kind of stuff, and you're like, okay, yeah, right, but really for them, It's all the kind of platitudes you hear all the time, but you could tell for them it was very true. And that's the kind of thing I've always missed, was having a community like that. I just never feel like I slot into communities in the way that you see all these kids and they're such a part of this community. But on the other hand, I got to walk around in chainmail and Caligula, which are the sandals with some hobnails. I almost died getting food because the tiled floor and hobnails don't get along. And that was a lot of fun. My neck is hurting because I had a bronze helmet on that weighed probably another 6 or 7 pounds. And I had a smaller sword, and I wasn't carrying my pilum. Like, I was actually underweight for what a soldier would be carrying. I do think it would be great if I could own my own chainmail shirt to go, start walking and start jogging with chainmail on. As long as I had a subarmorless, a nice padded layer underneath. It would be hot, and the subarmorless would stink to high hell. High heaven? High heaven's the phrase. But it would be a very good way to just, like, get in shape, because you add 40 pounds of really well-distributed weight to your body, and then try to make your body do demands. It would be a really good way to just get fit. So that's what I did yesterday, and it's currently the biggest thing on my mind, because my neck is killing me. My shoulders are just killing, because that's where the weight is the most, on a chainmail. Scale mail is even heavier, and one of our guys was wearing scale mail, and then there's the plate mail that you kind of see in all the movies for Romans, and that's the lightest of the armor. And the guy who was sitting next to me could, like, lean back in his chair, and it would take a lot of the weight off his shoulders, compared to me, where if I lean back in my chair, because it's chainmail, it's all just kind of body, it just would fit with my body contour, so it would just weigh even more. But it's one of those things you have to, have good, proper posture, because the weight otherwise is going to push in weird places. And I don't have the best posture, so I have some weird places where the weight kind of... Yeah. In other news, we began painting last weekend Taylor's new place with the color that I was like, that's the right color for it. And it looks great. And unlike before, I'm actually good at painting, especially with the roller and everything like that. Edging still has some issues, but I can tape it and all that without any worry. And so that was what I did last weekend, was organizing. I always had Taylor, and then Tasia came out and helped paint on Saturday. Well, I mean, Taylor helped paint her own place, but then Taylor was busy the next day, and so Madeline came out and helped me paint, and we just kind of breezed through it. And I really like that I'm doing that. I'm really sad that yesterday they were painting and I wasn't there to help, because for me it feels like that's one of the best ways for me to pay my dues, since I still don't have work, and I'm not making, to pay kind of as a thank you for them giving me room and board, is to help them paint, because that's something that costs money to get other people to help you with. And apparently I got left here with the dog. Ellie. No. Well, they're out there finishing painting, but they sold their house, and now we're starting to move everything over there, which means I'll be helping with that as much as I can. And it's kind of the least I can do to kind of make up for the fact that they're letting me stay here, aside from doing dishes and little chores. But Taylor, like, does that to make herself money, because her parents still pay her for it. So sometimes if I do that, I get a weird, like, what are you doing? Yeah, so still no word on work, but I spent a good chunk of my time Tuesday and Wednesday, and Thursday, Tuesday and Thursday, sending out resumes, sending out applications, not for little jobs, because at that point I didn't know when we were moving, and I didn't want to apply for, like, retail work in Issaquah, get the job, and then have to commute to Issaquah for, like, 3 weeks, or whatever it was going to take. Or vice versa in Redmond, where I'm here in Redmond, no problem, and then I move to Issaquah all of a sudden, and I have to commute for, like, a $10 an hour job. It's not worth the time. So what I've been doing is instead applying for a lot of technical writing and instructional design positions all over the place, including Nintendo and Sur La Table and a few places like that. And obviously, nothing's got back to me yet. Well, hopefully, Nintendo gets back to me. I've got plenty of experience for what Nintendo wants, and it's a contract position, which means I'm not stuck with a lot of the crap that a lot of the other Nintendo employees deal with. But Sur La Table got back to me within like 6 hours with a rejection letter, but it was really cool that they got back to me. First of all, they send a rejection letter at all, because so many places don't these days, but also that they got back to me so quickly, and I was like, well, that sucks that they didn't want me, but oh well, move on. I guess the biggest news is that I published 2 shorts on Amazon ebook and Amazon Kindle. Andy, get over here. That's the dog. 2 shorts. One from my aliens point of view, the Drakers, and my main family, my main characters. Ailey, come over here. And then the other one is a human short, which is I think, one of 2 pieces where humans actually are the focus of that piece in the entire world, which is really interesting. Got a bunch of people to edit them, missed a few things, as you do, and then put it back up. Put them up on the 13th, so 6 days ago now. Wow. Did it on Monday, yeah. And that's awesome. 6 people have bought it, which isn't a number, very big number. I can at least count 3 or 4 of those from family. But that's impressive. It's still really cool, and it's a really interesting feeling compared to when I self-published my novel, because I knew when I did that it wasn't canonical, it wasn't edited, it had a lot of problems. There were a lot of problems that weren't worth fixing. It was better to just start over than try to fix a lot of the problems in that book. Some characters existed that don't exist anymore, all these kinds of things. So when I made it, I made 3 copies, and then I realized I should have made a 4th. But I made 3 copies, and those 3 copies were the only copies that were ever going to exist of it. It wasn't going to be a public consumption item. And it was still this moment of like, oh my god, especially when I got it, I'm like, this is really cool. This is a height of achievement. It's in a box at home now. I don't have it with me to show you guys. But so it definitely felt a lot more like, oh, this is really cool. But it had this weird like, oh, this is really cool. This is a great Christmas present. Whatever. Like I managed to make a year's Christmas present out of my writing. Good for me. It's not going to happen again. Put it away. And this time around, I don't have as much of the elated, like, holy crap, look at my work, that I had back then, but it's actually available for public consumption, and that feels really weird. But it also has given me a sense of, like, legitimacy to my writing that I'm not used to seeing or having exist in the modern, or in my writing. And it makes everything I do, even the little dinky shorts that I'm messing around with, have more weight to them all of a sudden. Like, I want to write more, and there's a weight to it now, because I know that if I write something that I like, and that's a short piece, or if I write something that's a novella or something a little longer, but I like it, and I know it's solid, I can put it out there as a actual piece, and there are at least a few people who will be interested in seeing where that world is going and what other narrative in that world is there. Also, it was super easy to do, and that was a lot of fun. And I've got a few friends who I'm like, my mom complained that she has to read everything that I write, and it's not in audio. She can't just listen to it. And I've got a friend who does voice acting kind of for fun, for hobby, and then Madeline wants to try it. And I'm like, okay, do you guys want to try these 2 pieces and just see if you can make audiobooks out of it? And if it works, like, that's really awesome. If it sounds good, if everything kind of comes out of it, we can always put it up on Amazon as a companion piece or whatever. But more than that, it's like, hey, these 2 pieces are like officially published for public. so I know they're good enough. There's a few errors still, but for the most part, they're like really good, and you can get away with. They're really clean, so like you doing the reading would not be hard. And that will be interesting if anything ever comes of that. That's about it. I am gonna probably send out a few more resumes today. Um, oh, that was the other thing is I visited my old university, and while I was there, I was hanging out with my friends who are still at the school and talking to one of the professors there who had been not quite a mentor. I hadn't quite gotten to know him like that yet, but he'd been around and I'd gotten to know him. He was in charge of the area, the CSA something, um, that I was that I would hang out in after classes, and that's where I made most of my friends and everything. And now he's in charge of, they call it the Digital Future Labs, and it's the same idea, but more serious, more like actually academically forward moving, and they're making games and stuff, which is super awesome. But I was talking to him, and he just kind of goes, so, and I was talking about what I want to write for my dissertation, which is I wrote a paper on Doctor Who, a 15-page paper on like one season of Doctor Who and like three pieces of mythology, and how it reinterpreted that mythology into a modern era, and it's kind of retelling these stories and these narratives that have very serious life meaning or very valuable lessons in them, but repackaging them and retelling them to a modern time where people are just like, oh, okay, and move on without really making the connection between old Norse mythology and modern Doctor Who. And I wrote a 15-page paper on it, and I barely scratched the surface. Like, I mean, I kind of bounced a nickel off the surface of a tank and kind of just went off into the distance. And I think it would be a lot of fun to write my dissertation on that. And I'm sure I've said this before. And I was, saying like, yeah, that's kind of what I want to do. But there's only 2 programs in all of Canada that might work for me. And this is a really special place. The Northwest is really special. And I wouldn't really want to leave it, even if I wanted to go do my PhD program. So I'm applying, I was looking at UW Seattle and stuff. And he goes, why don't you talk to Wanda, who's the professor who I wrote the paper for in the first place? He's like, I mean, just talk to her. If you want to do Doctor Who work, she ran a Doctor Who class. If you want to write a, your PhD on that, she ran a Doctor Who class. You know her. Why don't you talk to her? And I had a long moment of like, that is simultaneously one of the dumbest things to have to be told and one of the most obvious things that I missed. Like, oh my god, it's some of the best advice I've had, because of course I should talk to her. She did a class on this. I wrote the paper for her. Of course I should talk to her and be like, hey, would you want to do this with like me? Because there's a very good chance she'll say yes. So I'm gonna send out that email today, being like, hey, I'm back. It's been a while since I've talked to you, Wanda, but I'm sure you'll be happy to hear from me again. And also, I want to do this. And Jason was like, why haven't you asked her yet? And that's a really good idea. So I might actually move forward on the PhD side of things too, which is just weird and crazy, and that would be a lot of fun. It'd be nice to be moving forward, because once I start that, I'm moving forward in life again, rather than kind of just being like, I don't know what's happening, I'm not moving, that's killing me, it's killing my mom now, So yeah, that's the updates. It's been a weirdly eventful week for not being eventful. Adios.